Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are checking out another Beasts of the Mesozoic Raptor Series release. And as you can see, we have the Velociraptor, we have Velociraptor osmolskae, and you can also see it says Alpha here. Really nice image over here of the Velociraptor, and you can see that it looks super cool here. This is actually a shared exclusive as far as this particular paint variant goes. It's a Creative Beast Studio website exclusive, but it is shared with, different retailers as far as international retailers like Everything Dinosaur and I think Mini Zoo and possibly one other I can't recall. But again, it is a shared exclusive, but here in the United States, the only place you'll find this is on the Creative Beast Studio website. But you can again see that everything looks really nice as far as the packaging goes. Beautiful as always. And then here on the back, we have the checklist of all the many different species of raptors, and you can see again we have Velociraptor mongoliensis as well. And I actually believe this is my very first figure that I can recall of this species of Velociraptor, so that's actually really cool. And you can see again that we have a collectible card inside, but you also have that kind of sneak peek of the collectible card as well as some information down here. And it states that we have the art by Raul Ramos, who again is an awesome artist and somebody that we have displayed here on the channel in the past as far as a review of one of his pterosaurs. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So we've got ourselves the back of the box, the inside insert, and it's of course the, terrain, the habitat you would find your Velociraptor, and I really love that David always includes this stuff because it helps to create a perfect companion piece when displaying it. We also have the tail assembly instructions, in case you are not familiar with any of these Creative Beast Studio Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. This is always something that's very important to pay attention to, would be any of these instructions kind of showing you how to assemble your figure and, of course, help when it comes to applying things like the tail. The Raptors aren't too hard to get the tails on. They're actually pretty easy, much easier compared to, a lot of different figures that you would see in the Beasts of the Mesozoic line like the Ceratopsians and Tyrannosaurs. So these are a lot easier to pop on, but still good to pay attention to this and, of course, follow the instructions. And actually something that I never even knew about these until right now. I just noticed it. Of course, again, something I think I just didn't pay enough attention to before when it comes to the instructions is the fact that you can actually reposition the tail, which is really cool. You can see there's two different areas there on the back of the Velociraptor to kind of reposition the tail. So that's pretty awesome. And then we also have our card. I almost turned it sideways for absolutely no reason, but you can see the card sports a beautiful image there of the Velociraptor, just looking as elegant as it gets. And then of course the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo. And then here on the back, a little dino toy photography, as well as again the species name, Swift Robert. And we also have information on the dinosaur itself right there. So really cool. Love the collector's cards. On top of that, we also have the alternate toes, something that you always get when it comes to these Raptor series figures, so you can switch the toes out for a more closed type look like you see here. The toes that are currently on the dinosaur are opened. And then something I had sitting right here that's a little different from a lot of the Raptor series figures is, first of all, you can see that we have the different connections that go to the base to kind of prop your dinosaur up, the little pegs that help your dinosaur stand on the base and create tons of display options. But you also have a longer rod here with this one, and that's something that wasn't included on the older Raptor releases, so you can kind of get a much higher sort of jumping pose for your Raptor if you choose to. So that is really cool. And then of course on top of that, you've got yourself a base and you've got yourself a Velociraptor. So of course the star of the show is the Velociraptor. It's about time we got to the Raptor, and I must say it is really nice looking. Like, I absolutely love the coloration that he's chosen for this one. I was really having a hard time when recently placing an order on the Creative Beast website for a Velociraptor, because I actually only have one in my collection, and it's one that I've never reviewed or anything. It was one that I bought on eBay that was somebody already tried to paint it up and stuff, and it looks pretty bad, so I'm going to repaint it. I've actually been intending on repainting it for quite some time. I want to repaint it with the Tiger Stripe Velociraptor from the Lost World coloration, something I definitely intend on doing sometime soon. But this is my first time actually having a fully painted from Beasts of the Mesozoic Velociraptor. And again, it took me a little bit to decide which one I wanted to go with, but I'm definitely happy that I went with this one. I'm probably going to try to get all of them as time goes on, but the coloration of this is really, really appealing looking. Like, he's used some beautiful tones of color throughout the course of this raptor, and it overall looks like it could be the coloration of the species, but at the same time in a really flashy way. Like, super, super impressive, and I love the very, very subtle usage of blue throughout the white head. Like, that is really neat looking. So definitely excited to get a closer look at this one. So let's jump to that closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Velociraptor, you can see that we start out the snout with a really nice bluish tone. And as we transition back, we head into a white. But the white is really nicely applied because they've obviously applied it over top of the blue or used a blue wash, because you can kind of see some of the blues creeping through the whites, and it looks pretty cool right here in the skin textured area of the face. It doesn't stand out though quite as nicely in that area as it does once you reach back here into the feathers. Like, you can see it kind of creeping in and out of all of the feathers in the neck area, and I really, really like the way that that has been done. You can also see we have some blues there around the eye, and we also have a very nicely painted eye. It's got a beautiful gloss coat to it as well. So the head overall is really flashy, but again, very naturalistic, I think. Definitely could be the coloration of a Velociraptor, and it's all beautifully applied, and of course the sculpting and detailing aspect is fantastic. We also have an articulated jaw, as we always do, and look at the really nice detail in there, but also the coloration. You can see he's kind of added like a reddish wash to the inside of the mouth in certain spots to add a little extra color variation and a little extra realism to the mouth area of the Velociraptor. You can also see that it sports a very nice gloss coat, so it shines very realistically, has that nice wet look like you would see in there. You can also see the teeth are all sculpted really, really beautifully here on the upper jaw and lower jaw, and very nicely and very carefully painted. You very rarely see sloppiness when it comes to a Beasts of the Mesozoic product, so I'm not surprised in the least that it looks so beautiful. We of course do have an articulated tongue as well, but it's always so hard to actually get a hold of the tongue unless you have like a toothpick or something to kind of get under it and pull it up. But you can articulate the tongue up so it's kind of like sticking straight out of the mouth or something like that, if that's something you would choose to do. And you can see that that jaw works very, very nicely, very smoothly. As you start to lead back into the neck, again, I already had mentioned the feather detail, but I didn't mention how nice it looks. You can see it really pops on the sculpt, like beautiful, beautiful detailing, really crisp detailing. And as you continue to move down a little further into the neck, we transition away from that white to a reddish tone. You can see some of the white, though, still, of course, follows along through the underside of the raptor. And then as you lead up here in toward the upper back and shoulder area and stuff, you can see the feathers get a little bit larger, a little bit fluffier, I think, right here. And you can also see that we change tones of color a little bit, as we have like an orangish tone here before transitioning back to a reddish tone. As you lead down here, you continue to see some nice color variation. You can actually see some variations of browns right there, and you can see that as we move down the course of the arm of the raptor as well. And we even have some lighter, almost like orangish type brownish tones right there. As you lead down a little further into the arm of the raptor and you lead out into the really nice plumage, you can see more reds as well as blacks that highlight the feathers there as far as the, lower area of the plumage of the arms. And you can see again that the actual detailing of the feathers is incredible. Like, when you get nice and close, you can see pretty much each and every little piece of each and every feather, which shows again just how much work goes into these incredible raptor figures. And I also like that we can see the variations of reds and stuff within the blacks. Like, they are still showing up with the reddish tones, and that really looks cool as well. You can see the fingers, they're slightly over the top, but it would be a little bit easier, I think, to take a look at them from here on the underside. So you can see we have like a goldish type of a tone for the hands as well as the fingers. And the fingers look really good as far as the sculpting goes. You can kind of see them right there. Also, some nice color variation, as it looks like we have some browns included on top of those goldish tones. And then you can see that the fingernails themselves are sculpted really nicely, painted with a nice glossy black. And of course, lots of articulation throughout the course of the arm to give us all sorts of posability options. As you move back here a little bit further into the stomach region, you can again see the feather detail looks incredible, but you can also see that we have some more really nice paintwork. And again, I love that they've dry brushed over top of the reddish tones with those brownish tones, because now those reds look really bright underneath those darker brownish tones, and they really pop, I think, in that area. You can also see a really smooth transition as we move down to the lower part of the stomach into that white, and then as you lead up here toward the hip, you can see more of those dark browns, but they start to taper off, more so back to a dry brushing, but a lighter dry brushing as you move out there toward the tail, and then as you move down here, you can again see more of those reds. You can also see more oranges as we transition to the white right there as we move down. Kind of slightly fluffy feathering, but it becomes a little bit more fine as you move down further into the leg. You can continue to see the white down into the calf, but as you move down, you also have some more variations again of other colors, and we darken again right here before we lead down into the feet. And look at how beautifully they've highlighted all of the skin texture of the feet of the Velociraptor, again with that goldish tone, but they've used a nice brown wash to make sure that each and every detail just pops on that foot sculpt. And then of course you have the really nicely painted nails with, again, that nice glossy black, even including articulated toes for your raptor. And again, you can see the dew claw and everything. As we move back up, you again see that we have the really beautiful feather detail, but also more really nice paintwork. As you lead out, you have a brighter red that kind of follows along the outer edge. And then you have a nice kind of darker brown, almost like a reddish brown, that moves along the center of the tail. And then as you lead out toward the tip, you have this really nice white that, of course, circles around the outer edge of the tail feathers. But you can actually see some of the variations of blues within the whites, just like we saw up on the head, which is super cool. And you can, again, see just how impressive the actual detailing of those tail feathers are. On the underside, it's all primarily that nice whitish tone. There's not really too much going on as far as color variation. To the underside of the raptor as you move through, you can see some of the variations of blues throughout the course of the throat leading into the chest, and then it transitions to just primarily that white. And of course, you're not going to see too much difference on this side as opposed to the initial side, because being a fully articulated figure like this, it's really up to you to kind of display it and pose it. So you're not going to see any type of different movement shown over here compared to what we saw on the initial side. But I must say, this is an absolutely fantastic Velociraptor, and definitely a great way to introduce the Velociraptors into my collection. And then of course we've got our base, and our base looks really nice. Again, nice earthy area. We've got some stones and stuff laying around here, and I love that he's applied some really nice color variation, and it obviously is sculpted out and painted in a way that it looks like it could be like a desert type setting, like somewhere I would expect to see a Velociraptor living. And you also have the hole right here to apply your peg to help your raptor stand up and, display it. So let's go ahead, actually grab one of those pegs, throw it in here, and check our raptor out from there. So because I haven't had the pleasure of actually checking one of these out with the larger peg quite yet, we're going to go ahead and pop that in. I don't know if it's in there perfectly, but nope, no it's not, obviously, it fell over. But I don't want it in there too far because I actually want to take that peg back out to have a more reasonably sized peg. Well, maybe I'll display it like this, we'll have to wait and see. But I also wanted to kind of check the raptor out when it's up here in a leaping position. Now the camera's not facing it very well, and I've got to find the sweet spot where it'll sit. So I may not be smart enough to actually operate this correctly, and I may not have it in exactly the correct position, but it is sitting there currently, and it definitely looks awesome up there in the air like that. It is certainly a cool way to display the raptor, and definitely a fun way to create some dioramas and stuff, and certainly worth it when it comes to like dinosaur toy photography, allowing you to really capture poses that you otherwise wouldn't normally have the ability to capture. So that is definitely cool. But again, I'm going to pop it off of here, and I'm going to switch this one out for the smaller, more reasonably sized stand. So there we go. We've got the smaller one on there now, which we can stand our raptor up, and I think it just is a little easier to get some measurements and stuff with that one. So as far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about the 12, I would say 12.25 inch range roughly, or around just shy of 32 centimeters. And then for a height, in the positioning it's currently in, of course you could always change the position, you're looking at about 4.5 inches or around 11.5 centimeters for a size. We will get a size comparison here in a moment, although I think at this point you probably already have a pretty good idea of the size because most of the raptors are similar in size overall. But as far as the articulation goes, we do have the jaw articulation, which we've already gone over. We also have the tongue articulation, which Let's see if I can pop that tongue up. I actually did get it up there with my hand, so that's a plus. You can see the tongue is now kind of sticking up there in the center of the mouth. Again, allowing some really cool poses for your raptor. As you move back, you've got a spot of articulation right here in the neck, right here in the neck, and then right down here, as well as right here. So you've got 4 areas of articulation just moving down the course of the neck, allowing lots of posability in the neck of the raptor, and lots of display options for the raptor. As you move down, you've also got articulation right here in the shoulder, as well as the elbow and in the wrist. So again, you can move the arm all over the place to get all sorts of poses, and you can also move it out away from the body if you want to have some sort of like maybe a mating display or something like that, which I think is really cool. You also have the articulation here in the midsection, as well as the hip region, in the knee, which is a little stiff. It usually is at first. And then you've got some more spots as you move down the course of the leg, of course in the ankle and stuff. So two more areas right there. You also have the articulation of these toes right here, which you can kind of swivel. And of course, as I'm turning the entire raptor upside down, you can see you can articulate the toe with the sickle claw as well. And then you've got a spot right here to articulate the tail, as well as a spot right here. And then, of course, a wire tail so that you can bend and position the tail exactly as you would like. And as we saw in the instructions earlier, you can also pop this off and reposition it so that you can have the tail more outstretched as opposed to going upward. And again, create even more as far as display options for the Velociraptor. And although the raptors, of course, have the stand, you can position them without the stand. They can stand up, but they don't balance well on just their 2 feet. You usually have to use the arms to kind of balance them out. I have yet to actually be able to balance one of these raptors on their feet without them falling. And the problem isn't so much that they can't stand on these feet, it's that the joints kind of buckle as you stand them up. So they sort of like bend in, and that prohibits the dinosaur from standing, unfortunately, freely without the use of the arms, which isn't a big deal again, because you can get, actually, so that's the craziest thing ever. It literally just did it right now. It's standing currently. Let me take the camera off of the stand and show you, if we get nice and ground level here. So that raptor is 100% standing without the use of its feathers of its arm. And I've never done that before. Like, this is the very first time, and I was just screwing around with it right there. And I got it to stand entirely again on its own. Of course, we don't have like a neutral position. It's obviously in a position where it's sort of walking. But I guess right there is proof that these raptors can actually stand on their own without the use of the stand itself, and without the joints buckling. They normally do buckle, but I guess if you get it in that just certain position, that sweet spot, it can actually stand, and that is absolutely awesome. And just because, why not? We're going to go ahead and do our size comparison with the raptor just standing on its own, because I'm really happy that it's doing so. So we've got ourselves the Papo T-Rex. We've also got ourselves the Attack Pack Colovisaurus, and Robert Muldoon right there next to our Velociraptor, showing you that, again, it definitely has some pretty impressive size. But if you are familiar with the Raptor series, and specifically the 1/6 scale version, which is what we're looking at with this Velociraptor, you're already probably going to have a pretty good idea of the size, and that is because the large majority of these raptors are all a very, very similar size, only, usually like centimeters to an inch difference on most of them. And for evidence of that, we've got a few other Raptor series figures in here that you can see kind of as stand-ins next to our Velociraptor. And you can obviously, if I get the position here a little bit better, you can obviously see that, again, they're all fairly similar in size, not too far off as opposed to each other. So the Raptor series, the large majority of these raptors are usually a similar size. That is until the upcoming Utah Raptor and Achillibator come out. But here is the beasts of the Mesozoic Zuniceratops here next to the Velociraptor, and you can definitely see again basically what a size comparison is between the two. And this is another one that I felt like would be a good one to bring in for a size comparison, because it is a very popular figure from the Ceratopsian series, so one that I felt like would be a good one for a comparison. I don't think that we need too many comparisons, especially for the Raptor series. Again, if you are a collector of this series, you're probably already going to have a pretty good idea of the size, and if you are not, then hopefully maybe one of the figures that I've shown you here would help to show you the size. So this Beasts of the Mesozoic Raptor Series Velociraptor osmolskae is definitely a beautiful, beautiful figure, and I would say it's probably one of my favorites overall from the entire Raptor series because it is just so flashy as far as the coloration goes. I mean, it's always cool to have a Velociraptor, especially one that is so highly accurate, but it's just really cool to have one that looks as flashy as this one does, but again, as naturalistic as it does. There are quite a few different Raptor color schemes out, but I must say that this is probably one of the most appealing overall, and being an exclusive to the Creative Beast Studio website, I feel like it's probably one of the more uncommon ones that you see, because odds are if you're finding them from other retailers, you'll most likely see the more common paint schemes, whereas this one again is a little bit more exclusive than the others. But I love the way that they've applied the coloration throughout, really nice and naturally overall. I love the blue kind of creeping through the whites and stuff. Really nice decisions on the part of David for the colors and the way that they are applied on this Raptor. And of course, the sculpt is phenomenal, as highly detailed as you're ever going to find when it comes to a Velociraptor sculpt, which is something that can continuously be said for any of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, as they always deliver the highest of quality sculpts. And you can see that again here with this one, and the feather detail and everything throughout, the skin texture, it's all super, super vibrant, really crisp as a whole. On top of that, you have really nice articulation. Again, you don't have any other Beasts of the Mesozoic figures so far anyway that have articulation as impressive as you get for the Raptor series. There's just tons and tons of articulation on the Raptor series, and that is just another of the many reasons why the Raptor series was so awesome. You also have that nice base, again capturing the terrain and the habitat for the Velociraptor quite perfectly, and is very beautifully sculpted out and painted as well. And then, of course, the opportunity to have different sort of like pegs and stuff to create all kinds of different poses and everything is always fun on top of everything. So this is a very, very nice figure. Another very large recommendation from me. If you haven't purchased one of the Raptors yet, definitely a great one to pick up. And if you have, it's still a great one to pick up because it is a very beautiful interpretation of a Velociraptor. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check that link. Go grab yourself this awesome Velociraptor, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.